I had too many concussions with snowboarding, and then that last one with whiplash is what caused it. So I just had to take it easy. They offered some medication, but I just said, no, I don't want to do that. And I was in a haze for like a good year after that. This is probably one of the lowest points in my life.
Joe Goettl grew up working on a farm, almost made it as a pro snowboarder, and he went deep, super deep into competitive running until he hit an endless string of injuries the doctors said would end his athletic career. Here we are in 2023, and Joe is a rising YouTuber and professional cyclist knocking on the door of gravel greatness. During the week, Joe trains, he coaches endurance athletes, and he works a heavy schedule in retail to fund the costs of his gravel program. On the weekends, Joe travels the nation as a sponsored professional athlete, and he's come within spitting distance of podiums at gravel majors, including the Belgian Waffle Ride, Utah. Hailing from the land of sky blue waters, Joe is a true privateer, pursuing the American gravel dream, cool as a mountain stream. This is the story of gravel, minus sprinter vans, $400,000 motorhomes, world tour pedigrees, and athletes with marketing teams manufacturing stories of grassroots, raw, gritty approaches to the sport. This is the actual gritty and raw approach to the sport. You can find Joe at Joe Goettl 2.0 on Instagram. Take a look at the show notes for the spelling and a link to that handle. We're getting close, really close to 200 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts. And whether you're a longtime Choose the Hard Way listener or a new one, please take a moment and help me bring you more awesome guests that you want to hear. When you hit 5 stars or pass this episode along to a friend who hit 5 stars, you help make it happen. And I'm very grateful for you doing that. Thank you. Choose the Hard Way is the podcast about how hard things build stronger humans who have more fun. Go to choosethehardway.com to sign up for the newsletter, and you can always say hello or reach out to me at HardwayPod on Instagram. Thanks for helping more people find this podcast. To do that, all you need to do is take 2 seconds to hit pause, go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and rate the show 5 stars. I really appreciate it, and please share this episode with a friend. Go to choosethehardway.com to sign up for the newsletter, and you can let me know who you'd like to hear on the show, or just say hello at HardwayPod on Instagram.
So we were mainly corn and beans. We were actually a dairy farm when I was really little. I've got faint memories of that. I think we got rid of it when I was like 5 years old. So yeah, just mainly corn and beans. We had baby beef cattle for a little bit too. So I'd get home from school and then feed the cows here and there. But yeah, that was, it was quite nice actually, because our town was only 5 minutes away. So we weren't like in the middle of nowhere, but I got to grow up in the country, and like, you know, my dad had me like driving his pickup truck when I was 13 years old, and like, just roaming around the countryside on my bike. So I started riding when I was really little, just for fun. We actually had a 40-mile bike path, just a paved one. It was like an old railroad track that was a half mile from our door. So that was like pretty fun riding up and down that thing. But yeah, and just the freedom of living on a farm, go-karts, 4-wheelers, 3-wheelers. I really enjoyed all of that.
Wow. And how young were you when you started working on the farm?
I mean, like ever since, so the way we did it, you know, helping out mowing lawn, I actually didn't weigh enough to do the sensor, so the lawnmower would shut off. So we had to tape the sensor down so I could mow the lawn with that thing. So, I mean, as soon as I was, or as long as I can remember, I was like helping out with small things. And then as soon as I got my driver's license, that's when I really was able to start helping, because my dad actually was partnered with another guy that was a lot bigger. So we had ourselves about 700 acres, but they had about 5,000. So my dad did all the spraying all summer long for them. So when I turned 16, I could start helping haul chemicals and water back and forth. So that's when I really started helping, once I was 16. And then actually at a high school, instead of going to college right away, I did a full farming harvest season. So that was a big adjustment, going from just normal high school life to, you know, 100+ hours a week of work. But yeah, It was a good experience.
100 hours of work a week. I think a lot of people who just have things show up in the grocery store and maybe don't have anybody in their extended family in agriculture, don't necessarily understand the kind of work that goes into the production of the food that we eat. So like what were you doing in 100 hours a week during the harvest season?
I was the grain cart operator during that part. So it's harvest is just, we're doing soybeans first, and then corn. Soybeans weren't quite as bad because you have to wait till the dew comes off. And at this time, so I ran in high school and I went on to run in college. So I was still trying to like train running during the same time. So I'd wake up early and then go for a run. And then we'd typically start anywhere from 8 to 11. And then we go to 11, 10, 11 at night or whenever the dew is set in. So that worked. And we do soybeans for about 2 weeks, but then corn goes for another 6 weeks or so. In corn, you don't have to wait for the dew. So we would get up 5 a.m. every day and then go till about 11 p.m. at night. And then I would get home and I would try and run, but I realized quickly I couldn't sustain that every day. This is my young 19-year-old ambition. So I'd run like a day or two in a row, and then I'd take a day or two off, kind of go with that cycle.
And what kind of work were you doing during those large chunks of time? Like were you operating equipment, driving trucks? Like what was going on?
Yeah. So the grain cart, what I was is basically is the combines. You want to keep them rolling as much as possible. So I would pull up next to them while they're still going. They would unload onto me. So I drive in a tractor with just a cart behind me, and then I would go unload that onto the semis. So we'd have like 4 or 5 semis with a couple guys going back and forth those. And I was just basically the middle guy to get the grain from the combine to the semi. So yeah, it
Nice.
wasn't super physical. Sometimes during beans, they would have me go like walk tree lines and pick up some sticks and pick up rocks and whatnot. But in the Meta harvest, like it's not a super physical job with all the equipment we have. So like in between there's some dirty things you got to do or some nasty. When we had to clean out the pit, that was probably one of the not so fun jobs. So when we're starting, there's if you've ever seen those big grain elevators, so big legs coming up, they have what's called a pit, and it goes about 60 feet down. It's what the semi dumps all the corn into, and you got to clean that out every year. And usually it's best to clean it out after harvest, but one year they forgot to. So we had to go down. It was a year old rotten corn and beans, and you're 60 feet down, and you literally have just like your body's width around. There's like it's kind of like almost looks like a little elevator thing going up. Like if you can see in the movies, those little food elevators. Yeah, but you're just cleaning out the stuff all around that. So that was one of the, like, there's little things like that you got to do in between. But for the most part, like it wasn't being the grain cart operators, like not too hard of a job. It's just the amount of time you do it takes quite a
Yeah.
bit of time. So
When you cleaned that pit out, how long were you in there?
good hour probably or 45 minutes because it's 60 feet down. The way to do it is there was a guy that would had a bucket on a rope, and he would just drop that all the way down, and I would fill up that bucket, and then he would lift it up. So it was like a kind of a painstaking process. Then I'd just be sitting down there waiting for the bucket up, bucket down.
Man, it
Yeah.
sounds like excavating dinosaur bones or something. Sounds incredibly
Yeah.
precise. So, and kind of to fast forward, when we were both out at BWR Kansas, and you know, one of the I think one of my most incredible social media moments of the year that I'm sure all the fans of Choose the Hard Way remember, and I'm being facetious, of course. But when I was out there on pre-riding the day before that event on the neutral start route out of town. I don't know if you saw this, but the day before they were harvesting, they had a combine. I don't know what crop it was, but they had the combine and they had the thing you described driving
Yep.
next to it, and it was like a 30-mile-an-hour wind with just like a massive dust cloud blowing
Yep.
sideways across the road, which made me think, wow, it's going to be an interesting day out on the bike tomorrow. And then of course it was, but that's that's just life in the heartland, right?
Yep. Yeah. The wind in the Midwest, it gets you. So, I mean, I was right at home because that was kind of how I grew up. Getting into cycling, it would the main thing I got in was like group rides and whatnot. And just riding in the wind in group rides is something that we did on a weekly basis. So yeah, I really enjoyed having the wind there, and I'm not the lightest guy either, so I tend to excel well, like on the flat and the headwind and stuff like that. So, or the crosswinds is
Right.
what I enjoy.
Yeah, and now you're a true privateer, I would say. So like you're a true gravel privateer or multi-train racer, and I mean I know there are a lot of people that use that word to describe what they're doing, but could you talk a little bit about what are the mix of things that you have going on in your life that enable you to like go do this?
Yeah, it's not easy. Is what I'll definitely say. Like it's definitely a grind. And yeah, just so for starters, I do have some good sponsors that help out with the bikes, and then we do a little bit of cash funds to get me out to the races and signed up and whatnot. But by no means am I covering all the expenses with that yet. So I do work at a retail store. When I moved to Utah, I was actually kind of part time. Then I went full time, but then I had some issues with injuries with the body, and like I still wanted to be a racer, and it's just so hard if you're working on your feet for 40 hours a week, and then you're trying to train 20 hours a week. So then I went back to mid time, and then eventually switched back to part time just this year, and that's really allowed me to train a little bit more and kind of reach another level. Outside of that, for this coming season, I am starting coaching with my buddy. He runs a company, Brandon Shield Racing, because I do need just to make sure I can make enough income to keep doing what I'm doing. Obviously trying to do the sponsor hunt right now and kind of increase the level of support. But yeah, I just need to kind of try and find another source of income to make sure I can get to the races because we made it to a lot this past season, but like probably not in a financially sustainable way if I was to continue to just stay part-time and just do that. So yeah, I think finding a job that enables you to do it is a big step in the process until you can get enough support. Then I make a little bit from YouTube now. Like I've had really good growth in the YouTube channel, so that's definitely helped out a little bit too. And I think that's going to be pretty big for trying to gain some more support for this following year as well.
Yeah, and what
So
made you want to do this? I mean, that's a lot of stuff to do
yeah,
to be able to go out and race your bike at these events, which
yeah.
so like why?
I mean, it's a long story that goes way back to coming from when I was a runner. So as I circling back to where we were at before, I did harvest right out of school, but I did want to run in college. At the same time, I was a pretty high level snowboarder. Wasn't sponsored or anything yet. I did end up getting sponsored a little bit, but get ahead of myself for that.
What kind of snowboarding, Joe? Like what were you doing?
Slope style, so it'd be jumps
Uh,
and rails. Yep.
seriously?
So yep.
All
So
right.
yeah, I had a very small sponsorship from Burton, like a little bit after I was running in college. So that
Okay.
was like when I was 10 years old, like I discovered snowboarding, and that's what I wanted to do. So I never wanted to necessarily be a cyclist until later in life. But yeah, snowboarding was definitely my thing. And like from the time I was 10 to about 22 years old, that's like all I thought about.
Wow. What was your signature look? Because I feel like every snowboarder's got their signature look. Were you like a
I
guy with like gigantic pants? Like what are we
Yeah, I
talking
was the
about?
baggy guy, the 2XL coat. So, as you can imagine, getting into cycling and having to put on Lycra. And I remember I'm like, the first time I had it on and we stopped at a gas station, I'm like, am I allowed to go in here like looking like this? So, yeah, I've been part of it all. Yep. So, I was the baggy guy snowboarder. And then, yeah, now I'm wear Lycra and used to it now. But yeah, it was a different transition. But yeah, backing up to that, to after harvest. So the following season, I went to Minnesota State University, Mankato, which is in my hometown, and joined the cross country team. I was a walk on, but I ended up making the top 7 guys to go to regions that year. We were slated to go to nationals, but they had regions in Colorado. And being at altitude, none of us were used to it, and we just missed out on it. So that was a bit of a bummer. But that was really kind of an eye-opening experience because in high school I wasn't necessarily like bullied much, but I definitely wasn't popular. I was a cross-country runner at a small high school, so there's only a couple, I think like 3 kids from my whole grade were in the cross-country team. Then everyone else was more like football, baseball, basketball. But when you get into college and you're surrounded by like lots of people that are more like you and doing the same thing. It was just a really cool experience. Um, and at the time, like my goal was, harvest. I wanted to run 1 year in college, and then I wanted to move to Colorado and be a snowboarder.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing I had set up. But that year really like kind of made me question that, because snowboarding, is a very dangerous sport. And I just was never quite like I had some friends that I was snowboarding with that are like full on professional now and still doing it. And I was just not quite to their level yet. So kind of throughout that year and then through the winter after cross country, like I wasn't quite able to get the sponsors I wanted to with snowboard, and wasn't quite at the level that I thought I had to be at to pursue it. So I figured I would choose kind of the safe way and be like, maybe I should just continue on with running in college. I could get a sponsor or a scholarship to get college like paid for, and get like a decent job and just kind of live more of that kind of normal life. But what ended up happening is I made that decision, and I put all that energy that I was putting into snowboarding and be like, well, I'm going to be a really good runner now. And I would just refuse to take days off. And I started developing an injury that later turned into what's called compartment syndrome, and then popliteal artery entrapment syndrome. So what it is the muscle actually cuts off your artery behind your leg, and then you build up all this pressure in your lower legs. There's two types. Mine was the chronic, which happens when you run. The other type is if you break a bone and it cuts off, that's acute compartment syndrome, where mine was just the chronic. But yeah, that really started kind of the harder part of my life, I would say, because it wasn't just pain while I was running. It turned into pain while I was sitting and standing and walking, and just literally 24/7 pain. And up until this point, I was pretty darn healthy guy. I didn't really focus on food or anything. And like I would get hurt. Yeah, I'd be hurt snowboarding, but I was never hurt for more than basically 2 weeks, and I would heal really quick. So I was really confused when I actually did take time off running and the injury started getting worse. That was like kind of where I started to get in a little bit of a panic mode, because I'd never experienced that before. So I'd just be laying in bed, and all of a sudden my calf would like seize and cramp up, and I was just like sitting there screaming. Then the pain behind my knees really started to come in too. Um, so yeah, that began quite a long journey of trying to figure out what it was. I think I went to a couple different doctors and ended up at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester about I think it was the winter following the summer injury. So about 7 months after. And the guy straight up told me, he's like, listen, this is what you got. It's called popliteal artery entrapment syndrome with compartment syndrome. There's 6 types, and you have the worst one, where there's really no good reason it's cutting off. So there's the other types are if your artery kind of bends around a muscle the wrong way, then they can easily like fix that. Where mine, it was just, they said the muscle grew too much, and it was cutting it off. And so their experience with the surgery, which, in hindsight, I really wish I would have listened to him, but I was, a 19, 20-year-old kid that I was like, no, something's wrong with me. I need to be fixed. Because he said like they do the surgery and their success rate wasn't very well. So they said they like to do one leg and see if it helps. If it doesn't help, they don't do the other leg. And then you just kind of have to deal with it the rest of your life. So yeah, that was a really, really tough day when I got that diagnosis. So, I went on, and not wanting to accept that, I went and did my own research, and I found a guy out of Madison, Wisconsin that apparently had a lot better success with it. And I ended up getting surgery there the following summer. But during the surgery, they actually hit a nerve in my right leg. So when I woke up, my whole right foot was numb, and I could still curl my toes a certain way. I couldn't like press them into the ground. So I did lose some function, but I could still curl them. So I was like not super panicked. And what they told me was, oh, it's just the drain pressing on the nerve. It should be okay when we pull that drain out. They had drains that were a good like foot long on each side of my calf that they just put in there. Apparently the way they do it is they just take a big rod and they like hammer it in, and then they split the drain, and then they take the rod out. So yeah, it was uh, just kind of gnarly on that. But they took that out, and I was down in Madison for a week because those drains were in my leg. So they just had me sitting at a hotel after I got out of the hospital till we took the drains out. And then it was close to the 4th of July, and every year I got up to my buddy's cabin in Wisconsin. So his mom actually came to pick me up from there to go there. And on the way up, um, my leg or my foot just all of a sudden just started feeling like it was on fire. And then the way I explain it is if you were to jump out of like a second window, land on a frying pan with your right foot, which it was my right foot that had the issue, and then lift it up and get stung by a bee in the big toe. That's kind of the pain I was experiencing.
Wow.
And it was just nonstop. So they had a bunch of, I can't remember what they had me on. It was like the oxycodone stuff, and I was taking the maximum dosage they were letting me take for the first 2 weeks. But I blew through all that really fast, and yeah, coming off that, like I think I had 2 weeks worth of it. Which in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't have more, because you look at all the stories about people that get addicted to that stuff, and I feel very lucky that I didn't. But yeah, coming back from that was for the next 4 months. That was just the feeling in my foot, and man, I couldn't do anything, couldn't focus on anything. I was trying to go back to college. I was at I think my first semester was a 3.8, second semester I was about a 4.0, and then I dropped to like a 2.0, just because I go to class and I just couldn't focus. Just so much pain, just from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed.
So, Joe, I think we got to pause it at this point, because I have to ask you. I mean, you described your involvement in snowboarding. You made this decision. You probably weren't going to be able to make it to the next level,
Yep.
and then you go to do something safer. Try not to laugh, man.
No, that's it's a life takeaway. I don't know, and yeah, I was gonna circle around to that. Like, choosing the safe way led me to like the worst injury or the hardest situation in my life I've ever had.
Yeah. So at some point in this process, were you like, man, I should have gone to Colorado and just jumped off cliffs?
Oh yeah, so that's
right.
So yeah, and fast forward in there, that's actually what I did. So like I couldn't, like, coming back. So the pain finally did start going down about the 4-month mark for the nerve pain, but I still had all the symptoms, and they were, if anything, worse than before the surgery for like the muscle tightness and the cramping and stuff. And I was trying to get back into running, but it wasn't.
I have to ask.
Going well.
Yeah. So from when you decided, hey, I'm going to become an elite runner, I'm going to try to go to the highest level possible. Like, as you described, you were a cross country runner in high school. You also, I got to ask, because you're like, yeah, I was kind of like an outcast as in cross country, but I mean, you were a snowboarder. Snowboarding must have been a cool thing, right?
Yeah, so I was a snowboarder, and we go back to that. So I was on this thing called G Team, and it was just a not through school, but it was an outside school kind of snowboard team, and it was an hour away from my high school up in Minneapolis, or like a suburb of Minneapolis in Bloomington, real close to where my grandparents lived, actually. So yeah, once I got my license, that's what I got on that, so I could drive up there. So after school, I would drive an hour north, and then we would ride for a couple hours for practice, drive south. But that was like, it felt like almost like a second life, because no one in my high school, like, when I was in 7th and 8th grade, I had a lot of friends from our high school that would go snowboard ski together. Then, kind of once 9th grade came around, most of them kind of started doing more of the party scene, and they all kind of quit riding.
Right.
And then, so I was like the only one that's like, this is what I want to do, like, so I'm not going to, waste my Saturdays going, like, hanging out at some house party. Like, I'd rather be snowboarding.
Yeah.
And then also, like, my dad wasn't super strict or anything. Like, he was definitely a hard worker, but like, I never really got into drinking or drugs or anything in high school, because like,
bath salts.
Nothing. I just was, yeah. No, I just wanted to make it with snowboarding, and like, I didn't want to do anything that would take away those chances. And then
So you were like you were stealth cool. No one at high school
Stealth cool, yep.
knew how
Yeah.
cool you were. You're just like out on the weekends. And I mean, at this point, I mean, you look, I don't know how old you are. You look pretty young to me, but
Yeah, I'm 31 right now.
okay. So like, were you throwing clips up on YouTube? Like
Oh yeah,
what
yep,
was,
yep. So that's if you go into my YouTube channel, it's very diverse. But yeah, I've
yeah.
got some. I actually, and I really regret it, but you know how you put stuff out and then like later on you feel embarrassed. So like I took some of my early
Oh,
videos
that's
down.
never happened. It's never happened to
Yeah,
me.
because trying to get sponsors, I just like I didn't want them to see like how bad I was when we
Yeah.
were first filming. But I think some of the first videos, they're more when I was, the year after I did harvest because I was still focused on snowboarding after harvest, even though I wanted to run in college. Like my plan was harvest, snowboarding, run for 1 year in college, and then quit college and do snowboarding. That's kind of like the plan I had envisioned myself. And that's where like those 2 years I was really going out and filming with my friends and putting a lot of videos together. So yeah, you can
Which,
definitely, if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see some stuff there, which,
yeah.
I've done double backflip. I got all four 900s, which was 2.5 spins. And then my go-to trick was a frontside 10, which would be 3 spins.
Okay.
Which I mean, compared to what the guys are doing now, they're doing like double corks or like nothing, triple corks, where they're flipping
Yeah.
and spinning 3 times,
Yeah.
or spinning and flipping 3 times in one jump. So it wasn't quite to that level, but I was just just off the edge, kind of
Yeah.
like where I feel like I'm at right now with gravel. Honestly, like just not quite
Yeah.
there, like close, but yeah.
Yeah. And when you were working on the snowboarding stuff, I have no idea. Is there like a Woodward in Minnesota? Were you working on stuff in a foam pit? Like, do you have
No,
a
no, we didn't.
trampoline? Like anything
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that?
we watched the videos of all the guys out west that had the big airbags to jump into. Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't have that in the Midwest. Well, there ended up being one at Buck Hill, which was about an hour away from where I lived
Right.
later on, but we didn't have that when I was growing up, so we just had to go try.
Just straight into the
Um,
ground, straight into a
yep,
pile of
yeah,
ice. It's how we do
yeah,
it in the Midwest.
yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, and but what was really cool though with the Midwest, like, because I try and go snowboard once a week here in the wintertime. Just one of my favorite things to do with my wife. Like we just get up once a week.
Yeah.
But man, like we had a huge advantage for learning on rails, because it was basically like riding at a skate park. You have a rope tow that goes up 14 miles an hour and you grab onto that. You don't have to unstrap, and you're literally at the top of the hill in like 30 seconds. And then you can practice on the same rail. So you can do that same rail over and over and over again and learn tricks.
Yeah.
Where out here, you either have to get up and hike it, or you have to, do one run takes you 20 minutes.
Oh,
So
wow.
we had huge advantage with learning. The disadvantage we had is we just didn't have the quality jumps. I was definitely
Yeah.
more of a jump guy.
Okay.
So college or after high school, like I spent I think 4 or 5 weeks total in Colorado, and then the following year too, I spent another 5 weeks in Colorado.
Yeah.
Just because the quality of the stuff there was so much better.
Yeah,
So
and I'm not highly conversant in what's going on in the snowboard community. I'm going to forget the name of it, but I know there's some crew in the Midwest and they're famous for going around and setting up things where I think they have a thing that they just grab onto and it like slingshots them in a
yeah,
parking lot
yep,
onto
the
a
winch.
handrail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have the high speed winches now. So at first you would like drive around with a truck with it's almost like a wooden platform thing that's tall, and just so you get speed that way. And then they had bungee cords for a little bit, but then they came out with the winch. I've never used a winch before. Yeah,
okay,
they just turn that thing up and then get you up to 30 miles an hour. So that really that made
right.
street snowboarding like pretty cool, because that unlocked a lot of cool things you could do.
Yeah,
So
and were you
I didn't do much street snowboarding. I was more focused on trying to like get better at jumps and do like slope style contests.
right. Okay,
So
and were you skateboarding as well?
a little bit. I wasn't a good skateboarder though. I spent most of
Really?
my summers
Huh.
just working on the farm, and then I would running for my to get my energy out. So yeah,
Yeah,
I was like I could do a little bit on a skateboard, but just it didn't translate like snowboarding did for me. The board's not attached to you, and it's just more footwork with snowboarding, or with skateboarding, where snowboarding's
sure.
more like a whole body thing and flipping and spinning. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I enjoyed more and just was better suited to. So
That's wild. Did you do gymnastics when you were a really little kid?
I had a trampoline at
Oh,
my
you did?
house. Yep,
Okay.
yeah. I begged my dad to get one of those. So yeah, we did have a trampoline at our farm, so that helped. And I went
All
to a
right.
couple gyms. It was funny because you'd have the gymnastics people with all their like perfect form doing everything, and then you'd have us like snowboarders there, like trying to do more stylish things. So it was like two different groups at the
That's
gym.
that's
But yeah,
wild.
we did a little bit of that stuff too. So yeah, I practiced. I learned a double backflip on a trampoline before I did a snowboard. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Okay. So you've left behind the glamorous world of snowboarding, which is super cool. Everybody wants to do that. You decide to do this miserable thing called running, and you
yeah,
end up with this horrible injury. What are you thinking at that point?
yeah. I mean, exactly what you said. Like, man, like choosing the safe way gets me the worst injury. But honestly, like I was still just scared. If you Google popliteal artery entrapment syndrome, which I did at the time, like there's not a lot of good stories out there. And
Yeah.
the one that came up was a guy he was 30 something odd years old, and he had been diagnosed when he was 20. So basically, he's my age now, and he had just cut his legs off to get rid of the pain. Like that's what I was
Whoa.
like looking at. And so, I mean, you imagine I'm 20 years old and looking at that, and I'm like, man, like, is that what I'm going to have to do in the future? Like,
That's why you don't go on Google when you have a
yeah,
medical problem.
yeah,
Like, don't.
definitely. I
Yeah, don't
advise
do that.
not doing that. I mean, at the
Yeah.
same time, don't stick to your first opinion, even though that was probably the better way to do it. Like in hindsight, like I kind of wish I wouldn't have had the surgery because I don't think it helped. I think it hurt, if anything. But definitely get second or third opinions, like see multiple experts.
Yeah, definitely.
But if you are going to Google things, just know like there's other options out there. Like don't listen to the first thing you see. So
Yeah.
yeah.
When all that stuff was going on, did you have anyone in your family or mentors, anybody that was pretty knowledgeable just about medicine giving you advice, or were you just a hard-headed kid with Google and a wing and a prayer going out there and
The latter.
okay.
Definitely the latter. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
no, I mean, my dad helped what he could and whatnot, but yeah, he wasn't like medically versed. I didn't really have anyone in my family that was real good with that. And we didn't when I grew up, my dad was a farmer, so there was a period of time we actually didn't have health insurance.
Right.
Like we didn't go to the doctor for much of anything. So like my vision of the doctor when I was very young was like, oh, that's for if you have money, you go there, they tell you what's wrong, and you're good. Like I didn't know there was this more art form to it, where like they really they have to diagnose you, and it's not always perfect, and the first opinion is not always right. So that's where
Yeah.
like my mindset was. I'm like, no, I got something wrong. I just need to go with the doctor, and they're going to fix me. So I
Yeah.
had to really reframe my mindset to like, okay, that didn't work. Like, what are my other options? Like, what else can I explore? Which I did get into like chiropractic and acupuncture and all that stuff, which some really helped, some really didn't. But yeah, that's kind of getting ahead of it.
Hey
Um,
Joe, how long had you actually been running? I mean, you had high school, you had the harvest, and then how long had you actually been running before you had the compartment syndrome stuff?
Yeah, I started when I was 12 years old. So my
Yeah.
dad, he only did one sport in high school because he had to farming was a lot more intensive back then. So he would
Yeah.
like stay home to help with harvest and stuff. So he did track for one season, I think. So
Okay.
just my dad was like I looked up to him a lot when I was younger, and I still do today. Like he's one of the hardest working humans I know. But yeah, I wanted to like kind of be like him, so I wanted to be a runner.
Yeah.
And we just didn't have it available till I was 12. That's sixth grade it was when we had track. And then our high school actually was really small. We didn't have cross country at first, but they
Yeah.
started it when I was an eighth grader. So I was I was on the first program of cross country for my high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense. I mean, you're talking right now to probably one of the worst cross country runners ever to come out of Rockers High School in
Well,
Kansas City, Missouri. I often say this. My mom listens to the podcast. Dad, I don't know if you do. He listens to it sometimes. Um, but my parents are great. But when I ran cross country, my parents, they would come to every meet, and I would often be in last place, and
uh,
they would give me encouragement to continue.
uh,
It was not a great life experience, but I think I athletically matured a bit later, and I've had the gift of being involved in cycling for a really long
Yeah.
time, which I also found around the time that I was cross country running. What I actually wanted to be doing was be out on my bike, which I also at the outset
Yeah.
was not very good at, but I love doing, and I just did it all the
How
time.
old were you when you started running cross country?
Let's see. When I was in high school, I went to high school when I was what, 13 or
Yeah. So just ninth grade.
14? Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Cool.
totally.
Yeah.
But
That'd have
so
been,
okay,
was that tough being, because like, as you know, cross country is not like the coolest sport out there.
yeah.
But being there and then, like you said, you weren't necessarily successful with it.
Oh no, I was terrible at it.
Yeah.
And the high school I went to, like, is famous for producing like NFL players.
Oh,
Like,
wow. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
I mean, that's not the only thing it
mhm.
produces. It's a great school, but yeah, like I had kids in my high school class that played in the NFL.
Yep.
So the cool
Wow.
thing
That's
was
amazing.
to be good at football,
Yep.
and I was good at other stuff. I
Hmm.
played in a band, and I was the editor of the school paper and stuff. But sports at that
Very
time
cool.
were not my thing. But
Yeah.
that also, I loved cycling just like from the moment I discovered it, just like the culture of it, the experience, even going and racing when I was a kid, which I generally did not do well at. And then I started to have a little bit of success at a low level in regional mountain biking, but I loved it. So, I mean, and then of course, I'm curious for you, how did you then get into cycling, and how did it go from, hey, you're someone who's gone through this medical experience that's been really challenging, to the next thing you know, you've got a GoPro that's exploding out of your chest. And if
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
hasn't seen Joe in real life, the way he records footage for his YouTube channel, which you should go check out, the link will be in the show notes, is, it seems like the mount, you must be using a chest mount, but
Yep.
it's
So
inside of your skin
yep.
suit.
So I do a chest mount. So I wear a base layer first, so the chest mount isn't as uncomfortable. And then I do, so base layer, chest mount, and then the bibs go over in jersey. And then what I do is I zip the jersey up right to the bottom of the GoPro, and then I just use those pins they give you to pin your numbers on to pin the jersey up from there. So it's like pretty stealth looking. Like, if you look at from the back, you can't tell that I have it, because I don't know. I don't want to necessarily have like the whole chest harness exposed on the outside, and then also have it on the.
Is that an aerodynamics thing, or just like you don't like the aesthetic going
I don't
back,
like the aesthetic for
it's just
sure.
like,
Yep, I want it to look nice.
that's the
Yeah.
snowboarder in you coming out. You're like,
Oh
I
yeah,
want to
yeah,
have like my giant pants.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it's probably still like a little bit of aero advantage, and then the other thing it does is it just holds it tighter, so the GoPro doesn't bounce as much.
Yeah.
So it does make the footage a little smoother at the same time too. And I've got the older chest mount, which is the new one has this like big pad thing to it. So like I'm lucky I still hold on to the old one because it gets rid of that pad. So it's a lot sleeker. So it
Yeah.
does fit under the jersey a little bit easier. I don't know if you could on the new one take the padding thing off, but I just have the old one and it works. So
Yeah.
I really love the chest view just because I feel like it brings the viewer into the experience a little bit better. With having the handlebars in view, it just makes you feel like you're there riding the bike when you're watching the video.
Okay.
Versus because when I first started, I did a couple handlebar ones, and it just to me like that gets a little more. I don't know. It's just not as fun to watch. As when you like can see the bars and like it just
Yeah.
adds to the experience.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many people now, because it's just like a necessary part of trying to have, like, patch together this is a professional way of life. Um, but I mean, there's so many people doing it. Do you all talk about techniques? Like, I'm just thinking about Kerry Warner using, he
Yeah,
uses
he's
the
got the
360
fin,
cam.
yep, which is cool too. Like different. I've never really talked to anyone else about how I do it and everything. I just kind of I know I saw the chest cam on the mountain bike thing at first. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can do that on gravel. So the first time I did it was the 2020 BWR in Cedar City, so the
Okay.
inaugural Cedar City one. That was my first BWR top 10. That was a cool one because like Keegan, Pete, Stetna, Lexi was there, like, and there was like 600 people starting that. But yeah, that was the first time I did it, and I uploaded it and got like 10,000 views. So that was like my first YouTube cycling video that did well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was, and I just, I saw the footage. I'm like, this is the way I'm going to do it. So
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how'd you become this gravel guy? What happened?
So there's in between, just backing up a little bit. So where we left off was the injury. I tried the safe thing and it got me the worst thing I ever had. So then from there, I decided, well, maybe this is life telling me I should have stuck to snowboarding. So I kind of pivoted back to that, and like I couldn't run anymore, but for some reason, like when I'd strap into my snowboard, like I could still do it relatively pain free, or it was kind of a distraction from the pain.
Mm.
At the same time as this, so in line, like I was getting into riding my bike, but I had no intention of racing or anything, just for fun. I had a lot of buddies that did local group rides. I'd never done that before. But as I got into cycling, I bought this old 1987 Schwinn. It had no front derailleur on it. So you're just in the big ring all the time, and it had 6 gears in the rear. And it was the friction shifters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would hop on the group ride with that. And I remember my first ride, I was in Nike Frees and basketball shorts, and I
Yeah.
actually had one water bottle and I had a JBL speaker in the other water bottle, kind of blasting some music, like, cause I was still, the snowboarder. So I wasn't wearing the Lycra yet, but I made it with the A ride, and all the A ride guys are like, who is this kid? Like, what is he doing? But like, having the engine from cross country, and I think I was unique because I was about 15 pounds heavier than anyone else on my cross country team. So I think that I had like this massive engine just coming from that. Cause I had some other friends try and get into riding from cross country and they did okay. But in the Midwest, like you need power to go through the wind. And then like the small hills are 2 minutes long. So I think that really made me excel. And I just, got really into it. But as much fun as that was, like I still had no intention of racing. Like that was just something fun to do in the summer to kind of keep me occupied and like a distraction from the pain that I had off the bike and while I was just at rest too. So I end up deciding I'm going to move to Colorado, and I did another harvest season, but I had torn my labrum on a mountain bike just before harvest started. So I was, I did harvest with that, and you're in the grain cart and shaking around, so it didn't really heal. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm slated. I've got this place in Colorado I'm moving to, and I think this was, I want to say it was 2014 that this was, so it was just a couple years after. And I moved there, and just the shoulder just never healed, and I was trying to ride, and I was a mess there. So like, and I hadn't gotten a job yet because I wasn't sure. I'm like, how am I going to stay? Am I going to move back home to Minnesota? So I stayed out there. I think I was there for maybe a month, and I'm like, you know what, this just isn't working. Went home, got the shoulder checked out, got surgery. But one little detail I forgot is when I was trying to snowboard with the bad shoulder, I had gotten whiplash really bad. Um, you know, I got a little headache afterwards, but this was literally a few days before I drove home. And like, it was the kind of whiplash where like the next day, like getting out of bed, I had to like use my arm to like lift my head up because my neck muscles were just completely weak. And moving forward on, I get the surgery, and a week after surgery, um, I start to just develop this brain fog, just utter haze that I was in. And I like couldn't figure out what it was. And we went and got tested and stuff. And backing up even further, when I had the running injury, I went from running 70 miles a week to doing nothing. And I started getting like tingling in my arms and all these other kind of weird pains. So I actually did get tested for MS. Um, that was another like scary point in my life. It came back negative, thankfully. But what they had told me was there's just, I had too many concussions with snowboarding. And then that last one with whiplash is what caused it. So I just
Yeah.
had to take it easy. They offered some medication, but I just said, no, I don't want to do that. So I went forward with that, and I was in a haze for like a good year after that. So sorry if the timeline's getting a little confusing.
No, whatever. That's cool. Yeah.
Wanted to do snowboarding, and then came home, was in a haze, didn't have a job. Like this was probably one of the lowest points in my life. I was planning on helping my dad farm, but he had left. They had kind of a falling out with the big guy, so he was just running his own 700 acres, and he didn't have enough money to hire me. So I didn't know what to do, and was going to get a job at Chipotle, but I was also, because cycling was something, and during this time that I was in haze, I could get on my road bike and ride, and the haze would lift. Like when I was exercising, it would go away. So
Hmm.
like this is when I really started to get into riding my bike. And this is, I think, 2015. Yep. So just that's all I wanted to do, is because that haze would go away and I could focus, and it was nice. But then as soon as I stopped, it would go away. I like to describe myself. It was like I felt like I was like a race car with an idling problem. So
Yeah.
like when I was like performing, I felt great and could focus, but when I was just at rest, yeah, my head just felt like brain fog. Um, but anyways, I ended up getting a job at our local retail store that we sold bikes in, um, and full time, because I didn't know what else to do. And that's where I really got into cycling more. So we were a Trek dealer there,
Yeah.
and we had a group ride going out of that one. Then there was another group ride from another shop. So I was hitting all the group rides, working at a bike shop, and it was hard to focus. But the haze was starting to lift, throughout this time. Because that happened in the winter. I got hired in the spring. Then we move on to the fall, and I'm starting to feel a little better. And then that fall, I think that first year, one of my buddies that did the group ride was like, "Hey, you should come do a race." So we did it. It was the Cat 5 state championships.
Oh, wow.
And I got third. There were like 70 guys in it. And I was like, wow, that was really cool. Like, because I'd never been part of that. I'm like, well, maybe I could do this. So that's kind of my transition to get into racing. And then so the following year in 2016, like, I realized that winter, like I wasn't going to be able to snowboard again because I was still having some head issues and it was further away. And then all my friends were into cycling now, and I was in a bike shop. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I fell in love with the culture of it too, and just the group rides. It was awesome. But yeah, 2016 comes out, and I go from a Cat 5 to a Cat 3, and make pretty good success in that. And then the following year, 2017, I went from a 2 to a 1. Um, and then during this time, so I go and talk about that chronic pain, and the cycling was a distraction from it, but I was still having pain off the bike with my legs and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I was spending a lot of money trying a lot of different things to like get better, like acupuncturists and whatnot. And I did end up finding a lady out of Minneapolis. Her name is Dr. Twee. She's amazing. She runs chiropractic healing arts. She's actually out of Edina, Minnesota. I apologize, not Minneapolis. But yeah, she uses acupuncture needles that are like 5 inches long, and she's the
Whoa.
kind that she puts you on this like vibrating table, and she'll stand on you and use her like heels and her elbows and her knees to like work out knots in your muscles. But yeah, I started seeing her, and the first thing she did was like look at me and like look how I walked, and she was like, "Nope, we're gonna fix that. Like you're crooked this way. Like this is wrong." And she just believed she could do it. And I worked with her. I went once a week for, I think, 2 months. And that was the very first time in 4 years where I wasn't in pain, like at rest, after seeing her. So that
Wow.
was like pretty incredible moment. And then, so that was the year that I went from a Cat, yeah, 2 to a 1, I believe. So I was getting better at cycling and then feeling better on and off the bike, but mainly off the bike. That was huge. And then the following year, I joined Above and Beyond Cancer as a Cat 1. So that's 2018. So we raced some of the domestic elite, like I did like Redlands and Joe Martin stage race. And we did Tour St. Louis. Um, and did okay, but I never, like, I won a lot of local P1-2 races, but I never like had a good result in the big one.
Yeah.
And then during this time, I'd also met my wife. She also worked at the retail store I'd worked at, and she wanted to kind of move to a bigger store. And I'd always wanted to move the mountains. It was more for snowboarding, but now it was like, now I want to move the mountains for cycling.
Sure.
So it's still kind of same dream, different uh, avenue for that. So we ended up moving in 2019 to Utah. So that's when we got here in January. And I was still with ABC that year, but the road, I wasn't quite having the results I needed. And like the pathway for that is obviously you can't really make it in the US. You got to go to Europe. And at the time, I think gravel was just kind of getting started. It had always been something I was interested in. And I did a few races, but, there was no one really making a living in gravel, obviously, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, 2019 was my last year on the road. And then 2020, like I decided to make the switch and just stop racing on the road. And I was kind of like, oh, is this, am I done pursuing this? Trying to do it, at the highest level and kind of make a career out of it. But I couldn't accept that, I guess. Like I just still had this drive in me to keep going. And of course, 2020 was the year that COVID happened. So there's not much really going on besides one race, which was BWR Cedar City. So you had all the hitters show up, and me getting ninth place at that race, like it instilled this, like, okay, I think I can like do this. It just gave me that hope still, that I could make it work. And, that was the first time you're really seeing like big gravel events kind of going on, or that was like a bigger one. And, so yeah, that was a cool moment for me in 2020, like getting that top 10 at that race
How have you
and doing the film
how
with
have
it.
you evolved your approach since then? Like, are you still kind of training for these races the same way you were in 2020, or have you had to mix things up?
Yeah, I've really had to mix up. So moving here 2019, I didn't have a full-time job, and Utah is a lot more expensive than Minnesota. So finances were super tight. So I went full-time, at a bike shop. And that, though, the problem was with that is I no longer had my doctor lady that I was working with. That was amazing to help me out. And, she got me to a really good place, and I was pretty feeling good like 2019, but partway through 2019, then into 2020, like my body started kind of going backwards again, with just developing hamstring pain and all this kind of stuff. And, I had switched to full time. So I was actually working full time all of 2020. So when I got that top 10, but, I was riding my bike 20 hours a week. I was standing for 40 hours a week, and I kind of neglected the stretching and the PT and the strength work.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 2021. Um, I can't remember if it was 2021 or 2022. I apologize. Yeah, no, yeah, it's 2021, the spring, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I just got that top 10 BWR, but I started developing like the worst part was IT band syndrome and some
Mm.
other stuff, with my body. And that's kind of where I had to make that adjustment. I'm like, all right, like I'm financially doing great, but injury wise, my body's going backwards again. So I think it was 2021, where I decided to go to 30 hours a week instead of 40. And they still let me, the local store, they still let me manage the bike shop doing that. So that was really fortunate of that, because that still kept the finances a little bit better. But then I was able to incorporate like my stretching, my core, some other stuff.
Yeah, like
Um,
how much time are you putting into that? Because I think that's something that a lot of athletes. I mean, you're still really young, but as people get
yeah,
older, I mean, it's almost like you have to do a 1-to-1 ratio of foam rolling, stretching, mobility, other stuff relative to the amount of training you're doing. And then that means if you're going to do an hour ride, maybe you're spending 30 minutes or an hour with
yeah,
getting ready to do the ride and whatever you have to do afterwards. And then most people end up not doing that. And then
yeah. And then
and
you
then
end
your
up with
body,
those
yeah,
small
I'm
issues.
including myself in this, because I'm sitting on a
Yeah.
lacrosse ball right now under my left hamstring and thinking about how
Yep,
my
yep.
left hamstring and hip have hurt for about 3 years, and I'm kind of finished ignoring it.
Yep.
But yeah, so like today, what's that balance like for you?
Yeah, I spend anywhere from, it's every day, and
Yeah,
it's 25 minutes to 2 hours of work every day.
yeah,
The IT band actually got really, really bad 2021 into 2022. Like, and it kind of reverted to like, it's not just on the bike, it's pain all the time again. So I was kind of experiencing a little bit of what I was experiencing like way back during my compartment syndrome injury. Um, and, I fell back into like trying to find someone to like help fix me again, like, cause I had my lady, which she
yeah,
taught me how to like foam roll and do all that stuff, which I was starting to do again, but I just felt like I needed more. And I have found like a decent acupuncturist out here.
yeah,
I haven't found anyone to the level that she could like help my body out. She was just completely another level than anyone else I've ever seen. But the guy I see here, it helps like, a decent amount. But more so what I discovered this year, it's called the Pain Academy. So it's anyone can look that up. But it's basically what it is it's a follow along video you do every day, and it's getting your whole body to balance itself out and work together. Because a huge predictor of pain is not necessarily you're tight or you're loose or you're flexible. It's when one side is tighter than the other.
Right.
That's the biggest predictor of whether you're going to be in pain or not. And then, so this really focuses when you start this program, you do all these like different kind of tests. You'll lift one leg up and you'll lift another, and then you like do a little squat and you take a picture of yourself as you're bending over, and you can kind of see how your body might shift from one side to the other. But no matter what the test is, that just kind of shows you your dysfunction. When you do it, the follow along videos, it's something different almost every day, and you're working on your entire body. And what I had failed to neglect like all the years is how much your upper body actually affects your lower body.
Interesting.
Yep. And my shoulders were absolutely garbage. Like all of the basic exercise I was watching this guy do just effortlessly in the videos, like, man, I like lifting your arms up and just doing stuff, or just even basic arm circles where you have your arms completely out to the side, like just doing stuff like that. Like I had no strength and stuff. And so, yeah, that, and apparently, like, I'm not a doctor or scientist with that kind of stuff there at all. But like from everything I've gathered, listen to like health podcasts and him, it's like everything affects everything. And if your shoulders don't work well, that can affect your hips and your lower legs. So I think that's been a huge thing for me because, this year I've only done acupuncture maybe twice or three times. But I do this program every single day. And then I do try and stretch at night. And then I also do some of the knees over toes guy stuff. I'm sure you've seen him on Instagram or something. So I try and do one of his workouts like 1 to 2 times a week. But I've had the best year I've had, and since I've been out here in Utah, as far as nothing injury wise holding me back on the bike, and then a lot less pain during the day. It's still not gone yet. I still definitely have to keep on track of it. And during the race season, I wasn't perfect. I did miss days here and there, and then I'd miss too many in a row. I could like definitely feel like some of the pain creeping up again. So I got to stay on top of it. But what I like about it is I don't have to spend money going to see anyone. It's just something I'm in control of, and I can do it from my own home, so I don't have to drive anywhere. So yeah, that's been a huge thing for me this year, combining that program with a few gym workouts, and then trying to stretch at night too.
And is that via an app or a website or what?
Yeah, it's an app. So, I mean, it is a little bit expensive. Like, so you sign up, but you get it for a lifetime. And it's, a program. And again, what I like about it is you log into the app, and then they have the video for every single day. And you just click on the video and you follow along. And if you've ever done Pilates before, it's similar to that, but like more focused.
Right.
Like a lot of, like, for an example, one thing you'll do is you'll be sitting in a chair, squeezing a block with your legs. Like you have a yoga block, and then you're doing arm circles at the same time. So you're teaching your hips and your shoulders to work at the same time. Then also with squeezing that block, one leg cannot work harder or easier than the other. Both legs are forced to work the same.
Right.
Because if one leg works harder, you're going to push that block to, the one side. So that's a really kind of like, I've never done like, I'm sure there's other workouts that do that, but I've never done anything that focuses so much on getting your legs to work evenly.
Yeah.
And that helps balance the body out.
What's the app called?
Pain Academy.
Pain Academy. That's cool.
And so before, when I was having my T-band syndrome, and there's accuracy things with it, but my cork was reading. I was 41% on my right leg, and I was like 59% on my left leg. So I was really off. And like now I'm, either 49, 51 or 50, 50. So like it just goes to show, as the pain's gone down, that reading has came closer together too.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's 49, 51. That's within the air of the power meter. So it's,
and for anybody listening who doesn't know what we're talking about, you can have power meters on a bicycle that measure the amount of power you're putting into both your right and left pedal. And so that's what Joe's talking about, is that over time his power production's become more balance. So Joe, as you think about, I mean, geez, like 49.51, that's almost perfect.
Yep.
So as you think about next year, what are, what are your objectives both with writing, and then what are we going to see from you content wise? What can people look forward to?
Yeah, definitely planning to keep growing. Like we had huge growth in my cycling videos on my YouTube this year, and going to keep that going. Again, I'm starting coaching with Brandon Shield Racing, so that is kind of my like the way to bring in income to ensure that I can get to all the races and not, a way I can, work and not be on my feet at the bike shop basically, so I can still recover. Plus, like I've learned so much from so many mentors, and I've got so much experience. So I am excited to do that job. My friend that runs the company, he actually worked at the same bike shop as I did, and he switched over. So he's a professional triathlete now. But he's, we've been talking, we've been good friends, and we have phone calls together, and he just shared like how much he enjoys it more, like really getting to make a difference in people's lives through it. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, mainly like my main focus is still trying to progress with racing and kind of make it to that next level. And ideally, I've listened to your podcast before, and I think Dylan Johnson said it right, because YouTube is a huge undertaking, and each one of the videos I do takes a huge amount of time. So like my goal would be, to have a few coaching clients, and then to do racing and YouTube. And that's the three things I would be doing.
Amazing.
Yep. So that's the goal. Trying to work towards that.
Awesome. Well, Joe, we're all looking forward to seeing more of your videos and to seeing you out at the races with your GoPro exploding out of your chest like an alien. So yeah, awesome to have you on, man. Thanks for taking time to do this. It was great to catch up.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrew. It was truly an honor to be here. So
Choose the Hard Way is a big truck production. Anthony Palmer at Palm Tree Podco is the producer and editor, and the talented Emily Miles is head of digital and marketing. Hecla Projects founder Jeffrey Nebellini is the world-renowned designer behind the striking Choose the Hard Way brand identity and logo. The content for this show is created by me, Andrew Vance.